Hey guys, welcome to the new Officiant Era, a series spotlighting officiants building their business and brand with bold voices. I'm your host, Tiara, New Jersey officiant, owner of Royal Treatment with Tiara, and creator of the Wedding Officiant Academy, and I am beyond excited for today's guest. So please give us an informal, formal introduction to you and your business.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tiara. So, my name is Tara McMullen-King. I am a professional officiant here in Salem, Massachusetts, affectionately known as the Witch City. So, I do a lot of Halloween weddings, a lot of October weddings, but I do other types of weddings as well. My main business is the reason why I exist is to offer personalized, customized ceremonies typically for people who kind of identify as maybe offbeat or a little unique, not your cookie cutter type of ceremonies. So I do anything from weddings to hand fastings to vow renewals, mostly work in the Salem, Massachusetts area, but I work all over New England. And I love it. I love meeting couples and finding a way to sort of have their ceremonies reflect their backgrounds, their love story, their passions, their qualities, their quirks in a way that's unique. I want to give them a ceremony they're literally going to remember forever. I want the ceremony to be the best part of the wedding. That's
I
my goal
love
always.
that. Oh,
Yeah.
that's so good. That's so good. Yes, 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 yes. So I cannot wait until we jump into today's conversation. But I also wouldn't be me if I do not start with a little bit of gratitude. So I would love to invite you into a practice I do with all of my couples in all of our meetings, which is a gratitude check in.
Love
You
it.
share one thing you're grateful for, I share one thing I'm grateful for, and then we will jump into the icebreaker.
Okay. That sounds good.
You want to go first?
Sure. The thing is, it's hard. I'm grateful for so many things.
I
This is
love
this,
it.
right? It's that holiday season coming off Thanksgiving. It's all about gratitude, right?
Yeah.
I would say, oh goodness, it's hard to pick one thing. I think honestly, this might sound cheesy, but I'm really grateful for my husband.
I
My
love that.
husband has been like my rock. He has really supported me through my officiant journey, through starting this business, through all
Mhm.
of this. And our own wedding kind of was the inspiration for me starting this business in the first place. So I would say, and fun fact, his name is actually Stephen King, like the author, and people get such a kick out of that. They're like, how on brand for you, the Salem thing, the witchy stuff. So he's the best person I've ever met, and I'm very grateful to have him in my life.
I
So
love that. That was
yeah.
beautiful. Oh, that's
Uh-huh.
a good one. Okay. Okay. Let me see. What am I grateful for? Honestly, I am grateful for our officiant community. I am grateful for businesses like yourself and like myself who are willing to have these conversations, who are willing to, share with the goal of everyone being uplifted. I think that allows us space to really be able to thrive in this business and to find our own unique footing and to understand that, like, again, what is for you is for you, what's for me is for me, and we both have so much space in this wedding industry. So I'm just grateful to be able to have this conversation with you and a lot of the other officiants who have joined me on this platform in order to share their business and their quirks and really lean into the uniqueness of what they provide for their couples so people can have a better understanding of what us professional officiants really do.
Absolutely. I think there's space for all of us, all of our uniqueness. But I think it's really important to be able to provide different types of things to different types of couples. Like we're all very unique, right? And diversity is what like America is supposed to be about, right? So I love that there absolutely is space for all different types of officiants and all different types of couples for
Yeah,
sure.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. Okay, good. So let's get into our icebreaker. I
Ooh.
know it's going to be difficult, but I am going to challenge you with picking what is one thing you love about officiating?
Honestly, having the chance to tell the couple's story. So getting the chance to really know them and to dig in and get to know them and make sure that their particular brand of love, their background is really reflected in that. Honestly, I love people. I really do. I getting the chance to meet all these amazing couples. And what's kind of unique, honestly, about my business is because Salem, Mass is such a destination. I have a lot of folks who come from all across the country. I've married folks from the UK. I've married folks from Canada. who come and they're basically eloping in Salem. So not only do I get the chance to just meet a ton of couples, I meet couples from all over the country and the world, and they're all so different, and it's just really fun getting the chance to know them. It's awesome. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And that's so cool. We're definitely going to get into the whole like Salem being destination and like leaning into that if you are lucky enough to be in one of those areas. But I love when you're speaking to the uniqueness and like the storytelling piece, because that's essentially what we are, right? That's like the biggest part. We are the heart of the wedding day, the heart of the ceremony. And so we have a unique opportunity to be able to present people's stories in like, very fun ways. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I would love to hear your officiant origin story.
Oh my
Essentially,
goodness.
what inspired you to become an officiant, and has your why evolved since then?
Absolutely. So, as I said before, I think my husband was a little bit of the impetus for this. Back in 2018, my husband and I got married here in Salem. We actually met right a week after I moved to Salem. I moved up from Boston, so yeah,
Wow, I
it was
love that.
awesome. But I think when I because I'm a planner, because I'm a little, I want to do it all. I'm like, sure, I'm going to plan my whole wedding myself. I don't need help. I can do this myself, right? So, and for the most part, I succeeded and I accomplished what I set out to do. But I definitely found that while planning, it was tough to find vendors who I vibed with, who had some of the same values, who appreciated sort of my own particular brand of eccentricity, all of that. It was hard to find vendors, and we had a hard time trying to figure out who would officiate because the ceremony to me was really important. We ended up going with two friends of ours. We had something that was a little different. We had two officiants and they kind of split their time. It was kind
Okay.
of funky.
I love that.
It was a little too chaotic, but at the end of the day, we had folks who we felt like could share our stories in a way that was authentic to who we were. But it was tough not having someone who was a professional, not having someone who could kind of guide us through certain aspects of it. So it was tough. So I was like, ooh, I wish that there were more officiants, that kind of were unique and could offer the types of ceremony that I was looking for particularly.
Yeah.
So we had this wedding back then. We had 130 people, which seems like so much now. People, the trend now seems to be more sort of smaller
Yeah.
ceremonies. This is pre-pandemic when everything was just, sure, let's spend money. It was fine.
Wild
Have
Wild
tons of
West.
people in a room. It was
Right.
fine. So we had this wonderful wedding, and I had a lot of friends and family come up to me afterwards and said, girl, that was the best wedding I've ever been to. It was just you and a little Steve, but mostly you, right? You should maybe like start a business helping people plan, like helping folks like you to plan these unique kind of celebrations. And I was like, that sounds kind of cool. Sure, why not? In my infinite free time, I have like multiple jobs. So I was like, sure, I'm going to start this LLC. It's going to be a whole thing, right? Fine. So I actually established the LLC, and my goal initially was to do more of the planning side of the house, not necessarily be an officiant, but to help folks find vendors, to help them plan, to help them execute these unique celebrations. So that was my raison d'etre when I started. Then the pandemic happened. So
Right.
I publicly launched my website and sort of my web presence on Valentine's Day of 2020.
I love that.
And then in March, kind of the world, went a little cuckoo. So I was like, what am I going to do? And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to keep my website out there and see, what I get. And I did have a few inquiries from people who were cautiously optimistic that things were going to take a turn, perhaps sooner than they actually did. But I had folks sign on who wanted me to help plan their weddings that were like, say, 3 years out. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. But through the course of this, one of my first couples that came to me said, and they were traveling from South Carolina to Salem at the time. They said, is there any way you could actually marry us too? Like, is there any way that you could do the ceremony? Would that be, because we love you. We love your vibe. I'd gotten to know them so well, over the course of planning and stuff. And I had done actually weddings in the past for friends years ago. So it's not as though I'd never done a wedding before. But I was like, oh, like like I love you guys. Of course, like I would love to do that. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to get ordained and I'm going to do this. And I really only intended to do that one wedding, but then more and more people started asking me like, we love you. Is there any? And I was like, sure. So I fully pivoted the business and now all I do is officiation. And I have to say, I love it. I love it. From that first one that I did, I was like, the planning stuff is fun. All that stuff is great. But being able to really dive in, and I've always been a writer. I've always enjoyed that kind of stuff and always been pretty creative. So getting the chance to do that and fully pivoting the business has just been a joy. And I love it. So things with the pandemic were slow. They really started to pick up. I'd say 2022, early 2022, things definitely kind of were off to the races. And since then, it's just been officiation all the time. And I love it. So
I love that. I
yeah,
love that. Okay,
that's kind of
okay.
my superhero, background story of how I came to be. That being said, too, something that's different about me is my wedding business. Witchy Woman Weddings is my business here, very on brand, right? Um, it's a side business for me. I actually have another job in another industry. So for me, I like, and I've had folks ask me, oh, are you thinking about making that a full-time gig? And maybe in the future I would. But for me, this is still kind of a side business and a creative kind of pursuit. So I love it because I can keep that passion going without feeling like I have to constantly be hustling to make my rent money.
Yeah,
So,
that's real.
but yeah,
No, I
that's kind
love
of where
that.
it's.
No, thank you for
Yeah.
adding that.
Right, that was a really long story. I'm a
No,
little wordy, but I feel like a lot of us are, right? We love to talk. We love
yeah.
to, so that's my origin story. Thank you for listening.
I love that. I love that. And it's so authentic, right? Because you're like, okay, I am this person. I wanted to have my wedding reflect me. And so I did that to the best of my abilities. But I also recognize where there's an opportunity here, for that
Sure.
professional element. And you're like, okay, if I had this experience, I'm sure other people want to have a better experience of my experience. And so how can I do that? How can I help them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm
And
like, if
then,
only there'd been me, if only
right.
I'd been able to find me back when, me was planning my wedding kind of thing. But that's it, right? I was like, I want to provide what I was seeking back then,
Yes,
and
that's
make it
so
easier for
good.
other people.
I love
Yeah.
that. And so with a name like Witchy Woman Weddings, so I'm sure couples, do they have a specific expectations when they're like choosing you as the officiant? And do you think your branding has shaped the type of couples that you attract as well that are looking for, this experience with a name, especially like Witchy Woman Wedding?
I would say yes, all of those things. I think um I don't like to pigeonhole myself either. I am many things. I'm not just one thing. All of us are, right? We're this
Right.
rainbow of different things.
Yeah, yeah.
I do a lot of, as you would assume, being in Salem and stuff, I do a lot of witchy or like Halloween type weddings, right? But that's not all I do. I also do more sort of like the spiritual but not religious, or folks that want sort of just a non-religious ceremony. I mean, a little more secular, a little more just focusing on their love story and not so much the other stuff. So I do those as well. I think because of where I'm at, Salem wise, being here, being in this space, and because of the name, of course, and my logo is like a lady in a witch hat, with
Right.
a little heart on it. I mean, it's all on brand, right?
Yes.
I do naturally attract a lot of folks who, again, want to come to Salem to have the Salem experience. And they're like, why not get married by a witch too? Like, how Salem is that, right? Come and get married and like have this redhead witch marry us. So it works. It works. And I think for me, but that's who I am. Like, I didn't come up with some character. You're getting married by me and all of my authenticity and friendliness and all of that.
Yeah.
It's not a character. So, that I think makes me stand out a little bit. And I think usually with me, folks may find me because of the branding, because of the name, and they're like, "Ooh, it's a Salem witch," kind of thing. But they stick around for the personality and everything else. I think folks sometimes are not really sure when they sit down for the first meeting with me. I think sometimes they're like, who is this lady going to be? What's she going to be like? Right.
Right.
And I come in just like all love and light, and they're like, oh, that's awesome. So That's kind of, I feel like that's a really long-winded answer, but
No, good.
the branding, of course, helps get them in the door, I think, but then they see that there's a lot more to me. That's not just the witchy stuff, but I can give them a witchy Salem kind of funky tourist experience, or we can have something that is just really authentic and really intimate. Sometimes it's just myself and the couple. Sometimes there's no guests. And that's a really beautiful experience being able to do that for them. So,
That's good. That's good. I love how you are kind of doubling down on leaning into authenticity, right? And so
yeah.
I find that a lot of officiants kind of struggle with that word, with that presence, and like what that actually means.
Mm,
So I would love for you to talk about what is it like really embracing your authenticity, right? And then letting that play such a pivotal role in building out your brand. Like you said, you're not just one thing, right? You're not just a witch all day long and like that's just, or you're not cosplaying, right? And because
no.
you're in that area and the location, you show up and like maybe couples have an idea of you, but then when they leave, they get to know like the full you. And so, yeah, I would love for you to talk just a little bit about embracing authenticity and how you can really weave that into your brand so that who you are online, what your logo looks like, and who you show up in that consultation all match?
Yeah. I think it's important to stay true to who you are, honestly. I think you know yourself, you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, you know who you are. You should know who you are. And I think, again, like you said, not cosplaying like with me, I am always me. I am always me. I am different things,
Yeah,
but I think it's important because that's going to come across also in the ceremony. And I think that's going to come across in all of your interactions with couples.
absolutely.
They will be able to see through any sort of facade perhaps that you're putting up. I think it's important just to stay true to who you are and to be who you are, because why are you going to have to be someone else? You know what
Right.
I mean? Be who you're going to be.
Yep.
Um, I think that, again, like the branding and the advertising and the marketing is very important. And I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of officiants I've seen out there that all kind of seem the same. And I hate to say that, but there's nothing that really kind of truly stands out that's like a little bit different or a little bit more of that. You want to find something that's like a little unique about the person, or that's compelling, that's going to make you want to sign up with them. So find something, even if it's a nugget of something that makes you different, and perhaps lean into that.
Yeah.
That's what I did,
Yeah. Yeah.
finding that uniqueness and leaning in. Either it's, by the location where you are, or by some services that you offer that are different. If you have a unique name,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
I think it's important because there's a sea of officiants out there, and you need to find something that's going to make you stand out a little
Yes.
bit,
I
for
love that.
sure,
Yeah.
while still staying true to who you are,
Yes.
for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I shared this story a couple of times, so if y'all heard this, you're hearing it again. But when I kind of first started, I had hopped on with, an educator in the industry. I'm sure, you have those little 30-minute sales call where they answer your couple of questions and then, they sell you your product at the end. And so one thing about me, I'm gonna maximize anytime I have anybody's attention. And so one
Same.
thing that I learned from that call was like, I come from a healthcare background, and so I'm so big on like gratitude, more of like a holistic, this whole person type of situation. And so that lady explained to me or reminded me to lean into that, right? Like nobody has these experiences that you have had at the hospital where you have to call on gratitude because we're in a traumatic situation. It's like, unfortunately, weddings bring on a stress that can then lead to traumatic situations. We see it all the time, right? People are talking about they're not friends no more. They're not talking to this parent anymore. Their marriage is actually not happening anymore. And so we have such a unique opportunity to remind couples all the time leading up to the day exactly why we're even walking towards this day. And so you can do this in your own unique way with leaning into gratitude and leaning into a more holistic approach to it because that's already you. And I was like, ah, okay. You know what I mean? It's like a light bulb.
I love that.
So it's true. It is a very much the sea of sameness out here. And so the
Oh, sure.
encouragement, yes, is to find again, what are your unique quirks, right? What are the things that you care about and you're passionate about? And then how can you weave that into your business? And that will allow couples who are also passionate about that to find you. And then you guys can, geek out about your passions. But
Absolutely. I mean, some of the weddings that I do, and if you go to my website, I spend a lot of time on my website.
it's
I
gorgeous.
know
It's
there's
beautiful.
commissions out there that don't have websites. I'm like, more power to you.
Right.
I lean into that website
Yes.
because that's your marketing, right? Obviously you're going to do other marketing, but that is like should be a reflection of you. And so
Yes.
with me, because of the kind of funky stuff that I do, I made it very clear on the website, like I'll do cosplay weddings, I'll do nerdy Harry Potter weddings, I'll do like any of that kind of stuff. So it's also about keywords though too. So when folks are searching, if you're putting more and more information on your website, those words are going to kind of pop up. So I think it's important to do stuff like that too, and be very mindful of that
Yeah.
in what you're doing.
No, absolutely. I love that. And so I did check out your website. It is
Good. Oh,
beautiful.
geez.
Yes, I love it. I love it. It's so straightforward. Absolutely, again, reflects to me what I would expect to have an experience with you to be like. And even meeting you now, this is our first time meeting everybody. So, yes, even meeting you now, very much on brand. So, one thing I noticed is that your ceremonies are very much known for that customization, that personalized touch. And I would love for you to share any advice you have with newer officiants on kind of creating those elements that really reflect the love story so that they can have that kind of commonality of, wow, if you work with Tara, if you work with Tiara, if you work with, insert name here, you're going to have a personalized experience.
Yeah. I think it's very important. And what I always do is I put it back on the couple. So I always say, we have those introductory calls, and I always say to them, and I have a questionnaire. I have a bunch of different questionnaires, and that is a huge part of the way that I do my business. I think it's important to get to know them and to ask as many questions as you can. So in those calls, I think a questionnaire is great because then you have that data like on paper, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of it is coming up with questions. So for example, not making any assumptions.
Yep.
I say, and it's kind of terrifying sometimes to some of the couples, because I always say, take what you've seen at past weddings, take what you think about weddings or any kind of ceremonies, throw them out the window. Throw them out the window.
Yeah.
If we're doing a legal ceremony, the only real things we need is the declaration of intent, the I do's and the do you take this person kind of thing. Everything else we can create together. And it's like this, I'm always met with kind of a mixture of like, they're overwhelmed, but they're also excited.
Yep.
Because I think there's kind of this misinformation out there in the industry. Well, with a lot of people that are like, well, a wedding has to be this, and you have to say this, and you have to do this. No,
Yes.
you don't have to do any of that.
Yeah.
We're going to throw it all out and we're going to build something together. And that is exciting for them, because then I start to, but the biggest thing is not assuming that the couple knows what they want. So what I
Absolutely.
mean by that is, if you ask them, well, how do you want to do your rings? Or how do you want to do your vows? They're going to be like, well, what are my options?
Yep.
Like, describe to me, well, what do you mean by that kind of thing? I don't know. I've only seen it one way. So in my questionnaire and in my conversations, I say, well, there's different ways that you can do vows. Here are some examples. And I lay it all out for them and give them something to react to.
Yeah.
Because most people might not be able to verbalize or to say, this is what I want. But if they see something, they're going to know if they like it or they don't like it.
Yeah.
So I find that presenting options to them as much as you can and kind of guiding them is really important. But again, getting to know them. I ask a lot of relationship type questions. I have a whole kind of separate part of my questionnaire that's like, how did you meet? And, all that stuff. And that's not just, even if they don't want the formal kind of love story component as part of it, I still use any facts, any tidbits, anything that they share. And I try to find ways to weave that throughout the ceremony in some way. And when they read the script for the first time, I always send a draft too beforehand. When they read it, a lot of times they're like, oh my God, I forgot I mentioned that. I can't believe you picked up on that. Or like, oh my God, that's so cute. I'll work things into the vows that are specific to them, things like that. And all of these things make them happy, right? They just, it's a way to sort of make it, I don't know, just different.
Yeah.
And they really appreciate that. So I don't know.
I love that. No, it's good because you spoke to essentially developing out a process, right? This is the way
Oh,
that you
sure.
are serving these couples. This is the way
Yeah.
that you are getting from these promises that you're giving in the consultation to these raving reviews right after the ceremony is over. And you're showing them how we get to this place. And I always say this as like officiants, we are doing a lot of like giving people permission, like releasing them from
Yes.
these like ideas and these standards. And it's like you don't have to have like your parents or your siblings or like your cousin's wedding. Like it can look completely unique to you, and there is a lot of pressure, outside pressure to have things a certain type of way, and people do have to be like reminded, hey, it doesn't have to look like that. It can look like exactly what you want it to look like. You don't know what you want it to look like?
Absolutely.
Let's work on
And
it.
again, that's like scary for some of them too, because they're like, well, if I don't do it this very traditional way, what does that mean? Like, what? And that's when you sit down and say, my child, come with me.
Yeah.
I have all these different ideas for you.
I love
And that is so exciting, though, when you give them permission to have something that is authentic to them and that reflects them in every way, shape, or form. That is like, you hit that sweet spot with them and they get really excited.
Yeah.
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 I love that.
Love it. So
Yeah.
good.
I love it.
Yes. So I would love to hear, what do you believe, and I feel like you kind of hinted on it, right? But what do you believe makes a ceremony truly memorable, magical, meaningful? And, what is the key to incorporating that into your work? I know you spoke about, getting these elements of asking the right questions, right? That's number one, asking the right questions, and taking that and weaving it in. But is there anything additional that just really, sets the tone?
Yeah, I think, as I said, I think a lot of it is just kind of getting to know them, and having those conversations. But also, I think, and this is like, I guess I'm crediting myself, I'm a pretty intuitive person. I
Mhm.
feel like you pick up on cues. When you have those conversations, you kind of pick up on that stuff. So really pay attention when they're speaking. Pay attention to body language. Pay attention to those things when you're having conversations with them. I think it's just important, again, to get to know this couple, holistically, right? To see them as not just a couple, but to see them as individuals as
Yes.
well. To
Yeah.
get to know them on that level. I think it's just important. Again, a lot of it is just getting to know them and asking the right questions, but also listening.
Yeah.
And listening to what they're saying, and even those unspoken things that they may be saying, or the way that they interact with each other. Watch their facial expressions. If you bring up an idea and one of them's like, not so into it, and the other one's really excited, write that down. Maybe that's not something that they want. So I think, I don't know, a lot of it is just active listening and really listening to what they're saying is very important. Yeah.
That was such a great answer. And I agree. I do think it's like you kind of, get to match their vibe in a way as well, right? As you're getting to know them. And then you get to bring that out during the ceremony when there's a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings and a lot of nervousness and anxiousness. And you kind of see people shrink. I'm starting to notice that, like when you see them in the meetings, so vibrant, all of these things, but then when they're under the tremendous stress of the wedding day timeline and vendors
Yeah.
and this and that, you kind of see them shrink. And I feel like it's such a special moment in the ceremony for us to kind of like hold all that energy for them, and then when we're all up there together, we just get to like release it, and then we get to
Yeah.
absorb theirs, and it is just like beautiful exchange of energy that's happening that I don't know that couples necessarily always pick up on in the moment, but they feel
No.
after, like they feel it, and I love that.
I think some of it too, a lot of the couples, because I get to know them in such a, I'm not like sitting down and having an interview with them each
Yeah.
time, but again, it's a lot of it is just natural conversations like the one that you and I are having right now, and picking up on those little details.
Definitely.
I have had couples say to me, sometimes it comes out in conversations, sometimes I actually ask them, like, how do you feel about public speaking? How do you feel about standing up in front of a crowd? Like, is it something that's going to make you nervous? Is it something that and having them go, oh my gosh, thank you for asking. Like, no, this whole thing terrifies me. So being able to be conscious of that and to craft the ceremony where maybe, and that's in cases like that, a lot of times I say, would you want to just do I do vows rather than you saying a whole sentence? Do you not want to do personal vows? And maybe the idea of exchanging personal vows later after the ceremony or something, they're like, we can do that. I'm like, yes, you can do anything,
You can do anything.
But knowing that and being sensitive to folks, those quirks or those sort of mental blocks or things that, they're not comfortable with. I've had couples say, we don't want to be the center of attention. And I'm like, well, hold on to your butts, because you're going to be for at least a little bit, right? But I'm going to make it as gentle as possible. And I'm going to do all the talking. You just stand there and just look at each other or look at me. You don't even have to look at all the people out there, kind of thing. Just find ways to almost, I feel like sometimes I'm also a little bit of a therapist,
Yes.
A little bit of a, relationship coach, a little bit of but all of those things that we bring to the table, right? I don't know. I think it's important to really not just make the ceremony and the words that are being used reflect them, but the style, whether or not they're participating actively all the time, or whether it's just the Tara show and they're just kind of, more in the background because they want to be kind of thing. Finding that sweet spot, I think, is important too.
Yeah, I would absolutely have to agree with you. And it is a sweet spot to find, right? And it's something that, you get your reps in, and each couple is different. And it's about figuring out your process to learn the couple to be able to show up for them the best way, that you could fill in the gaps that they're struggling with. And I love that.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing is just releasing them from the pressure that they may have put on themselves. It's self-imposed pressure, giving them permission to rethink things and giving them permission to throw out traditions, that might not resonate with them, I think is a huge first step, just kind of releasing them from that. And then they tend to sort of open up a little bit and get those creative juices flowing, kind of thing. It's great.
I love that. Yes, that's so true. It's so true. Okay, I would love to speak a little bit about location. I would consider you to be in, a destination location because, again, people, it's like a big landmark and people literally like fly there, like you said, for that experience. And so I would love to hear how your approach and your offerings are being impacted because you're in a destination location. Like, did you take that into consideration when you started to put everything together, especially because October is, your month to shine? I noticed that you also have special pricing, so you really take advantage of that as well. So
I do.
I would love to know, how were you inspired to put this together with that into consideration?
Yeah. So Salem is definitely a destination. Every year, I think last year, I forget what the actual number was, but last year or the year before, we had 1.2 million people visit Salem just in the month of October. Now, to put it into perspective, we are a city of about 45,000 residents. The downtown area is only about a square mile. So you think about all of these people, all of these bodies, here in October. It's a lot. And, we are a very, very, very old city from the 1600s. Our infrastructure is not great. Our roads are not great. We don't have a lot of parking. So it's crazy here in the fall. And I think there's a lot of couples, particularly who want to come to Salem and they want to, again, have that like Salem tourist experience, but also get married and have get married by a witch. And that's great. I think with those couples, my approach, though, sometimes is different than if it's a more local couple. And the reason I say that is because a lot of the couples who come to me in the fall, many of them have never been to Salem before. They don't live here. They don't know the area. They don't really know anything. They just know that they want to come, and usually I'm the first thing that they find. I'm the first person that they find. And then they build the trip around that, which is very flattering, but also terrifying for me, right? No pressure, pressure, So a lot of times they find me because they're typing and they're Googling Salem elopement or elope in Salem, Mass. And I'm on the first page of results because I tweaked my SEO on the site and stuff. So it comes up. So usually they'll find me and then I say to them, have you ever been to Salem before? And they're like, nope. So they usually need a lot of help. My cat's here. They usually need a lot of help. He's like creeping down. Get down, please. They don't know what they're doing. And, you know, a lot of them have only been, you know, have never been married. So they're like, we don't know what we're doing. How can you help us? So part of my services is not just doing the ceremony, but also kind of helping them plan a little bit because of being in a destination like Salem. So I have lists and guides that I can provide them that I spent years creating and tweaking. So if they say, you know, do you have some ideas for locations? We would want something that is not going to be overrun with tourists. Are there outdoor parks? It's just going to be us. We're not bringing guests. It'll just be us. Is there a place where we can go that it'll just be the three of us and we can have an intimate moment amidst the chaos? And I'm like, I got you. So I've got this list that I can send them that has all different venues and all different locations and pictures and links and all this information. So they don't have to do any of the research. And I can't tell you how appreciative they are. They're like, this is amazing. You saved us so much time and energy. So being mindful of that, in that, you know, even within a tourist kind of place like Salem, there's going to be couples that don't want to have that tourist kind of wedding experience. They want something that's going to be quiet and intimate. So I give them suggestions. I have lists for photographers, DJs, florists, bakers, anything that they need, I can give that to them. Because again, they're traveling to a place that they've never been. They don't know the space, the vendors, anything like that. So being able to help them, that is rolled into my package. There's not an extra charge for that. That's just if they need that help, then I help them. And that's part of the whole package deal. I hope that makes sense.
No, absolutely.
I think, you know, October, the reason why there is an upcharge for my October ceremonies is because many times the traffic here is crazy. I'm trying to find locations that aren't overrun with people. Even when I make those suggestions, there's no guarantee that there aren't going to be a lot of people there. So there's a lot more, the level of stress is greatly enhanced for any October ceremonies. A lot of times also they will want me to bring they may need some, like I have some like LED candles. I have a couple things I can bring to kind of zhuzh up the space a little bit. And that's all like rolled in. I don't charge extra for any of that. So that's why I upcharge for October. I definitely upcharge for Halloween because that is a big holiday and it's a holiday for me. As an actual witch, it's actually a sacred holiday within the Wiccan community. So I'm like, if you're going to get me out of the house on Halloween, I'm gonna charge you for that, because it's like a Christian, you know, minister doing a Christmas Day wedding, right? It's the same kind of thing. So you're gonna pay to sort of have that unique experience, and I'm gonna give you all I got, but there is a charge associated with that. So, and I have no problem booking people. I'm booked out for the next 3 Halloweens. So
I believe it.
There's people that are willing to do that. But know your own worth too. Do market research and figure out what officiants are kind of charging in your areas. And I know that some officiants may have just a flat fee like myself. Others have packages, things like that. So kind of think about, you know, how you want to structure your charges, your fees and things like that. I think it's important just to kind of understand that and kind of go into that, knowing what you're comfortable with too. And don't undersell yourself. I feel like I'm rambling. The last point I ramble. I'm a rambler. When I first started, I kept my fees very, very low. And this is kind of a point that I want to make to newer officiants too. I kept my fees pretty low. I did do market research and I kind of figured out in my area is different because there's not a lot of professional officiants, to be honest. What I was up against competition-wise is justice of the peace folks. Yeah. There's a lot of those. And they can only charge, there's a cap on what they can charge. So I was already coming in charging more than them, but I didn't have a lot of other professional officiants like you or I that I was kind of competing against for business. Yeah. So I was able to keep my fees low because I wanted to get the experience. And so after a while, each year, I raised my fees a little bit, at least, to kind of keep up with that too. So again, kind of knowing the business, looking around, looking at other, you know, officiants, what they're charging and keeping pace with that. I think is important. But it's okay to start out low, and
Mhm.
then you can raise your prices whenever you want to,
Absolutely.
really.
Yeah.
And giving yourself permission to do that and going, I am worth this. I
Absolutely.
put in a lot of time and effort. I'm going to charge more, right?
Absolutely.
A
Yeah.
lot of times we don't want to do that, right? We're like, oh, but I'm going to lose business. But what I have found, this is my last point, and I swear I'll stop rambling. What I have found is that each time I raise my prices, especially this last time I raised them at the beginning of this year, the inquiries did drop off a little bit. And I was like, okay, because I had almost doubled my prices in 3 years. So I
Mhm.
was like, it was significant enough.
Yeah.
But what I was finding is the quality of the couples in terms of just them, the conversion rate, so to speak,
Mhm.
from the inquiry to them actually signing was really a lot higher. I was getting a lot of like looky-loos, like
Yep.
people in the past that were like, ooh, let me make this inquiry. The inquiries that I'm getting now, they're serious about hiring me. So there's less of the back and forth. I don't have to really sell myself as
Yes.
much.
Yes.
So that kind of comes with that. There's the perception of quality sometimes that goes with higher prices too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
I will be quiet now. I'm rambling. I can talk about this stuff all day.
No, it's great because you touched on a lot of points that, again, we're constantly sharing in our community. And I think what I come to find is that a lot of newer officiants don't quite understand the role, responsibility, and the value of what it is that they're doing. And so
Yeah.
they typically, come in a little bit lower because, again, not quite understanding it's a lot more work than just showing up the day of, right? And
Oh yeah.
just doing your, quick little spiel about yourself. Yeah, it's not it's not that anymore.
It's a lot of work.
Yes.
And sometimes emotional labor too. There's a lot of all of that.
Yes.
I don't think anyone becomes a professional wedding officiant because they want to be a billionaire. It's sometimes that money is hard earned a little bit at times,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But yeah,
No, absolutely. So again,
you have to really love it, I think.
no,
Yeah,
you do because it's a lot. You take on a lot. You do. You take on a lot. You didn't sign up to be a premarital counselor, but somehow you sprinkle a little of that in there, right? So
a little bit, a little bit. Yep,
yes, sometimes you're sourcing vendors as well. Hey, sprinkle a little bit of that in there. It's about really just, again, going above and beyond for your couple. And I
for sure.
always suggest for people who want to start out an elopement or just really focus on elopements or even just be in a destination space, make those little guides, right? Make those little elopement guides and just these other like many resources that you can easily give to your couple. It just sets you apart. The resources you can provide for your couples sets
For
you
sure.
apart. The advice, the ideas that you provide for your couples, that literally sets you apart. Like you said, there's just this perception that, hey, this person kind of knows what they're doing, right? Or,
Yeah,
they're creative and we wanted that creative touch because we don't necessarily have it and we don't know what that's supposed to look like.
for
And then on
sure.
top of that, you know how to do it legally. So it's like, all right, I know I guess
Yeah.
we don't have to worry. You know?
I often say that in terms of my officiation, I offer kind of a concierge level like service. So whatever you need, and I tell my couples like if you need anything, if you need like where's the local dry cleaners, like where is, just like even little tips or little things that they need, I'm like I got you and I research it and I give that to them. So whatever kind of question they come at, I want to be able to provide them answers or provide them help. And that goes so far. It's not for me, it's not just about writing the ceremony. That's like the icing on everything. But as
Exactly.
part of building that relationship, I want to be as helpful as possible. And that gets you really good reviews,
Yeah,
I have to say, because they're
absolutely.
like, oh my God, she went above and beyond. She did this, she did that, plus the ceremony was beautiful. But
Yes.
those kinds of things, if you're saving them time and you're saving them, hours of scouring the internet, trying to find photographers or whatever, being able to present a list for me of like 25 local photographers with links to their Instagram and links to they're like, you just saved me so much time,
Yes.
and it's a way to also promote other vendors that you've worked with in the space who are going to be great because you have the experience of working with them. So they love that a lot of the vendors that I present to them and recommend are kind of vetted
Yeah.
by me.
Yeah.
It saves them a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, that speaks to a lot as well. Like you said, the time and the additional energy that you're putting in to like do these things. Couples
Yeah.
are looking at that. They're looking at that. They're paying attention to that. And you're right, it's going to reflect in your reviews. And they're probably going to be more willing to leave a review as well because, we always have that
Yeah.
issue as well. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So My last question is, was there anything that we did not get a chance to speak about that you were hoping that we did, or any question I didn't ask that you were like, I wish you would have asked this?
Ooh, putting me on the spot. No, I like it. Um, No, I think at the end of the day, I think it's, and we've kind of touched this. This has kind of been a thread that's been woven throughout this is be yourself, honestly. There are a million officiants, not a million, but there's a lot of officiants in this space, but really kind of do some self examination if you're starting out and figure out like, what is the unique kind of thing about me that I bring to the table? But also customer service, client service is like super, super important. And again, we've kind of touched on this. But I think helping couples in as many ways as possible, I think is really important. It's going to go a long way. And again, getting those reviews, but also know your own value, know your own worth, I think is important too. Don't undersell yourself. And as much time as you need in the beginning, if you're starting out, like take the time to really do your research, watch videos, try to connect with other people in the space, like through the, Officiant Academy, kind of find these networks and ask questions from other people who have walked that walk before.
Yeah.
I think I would recommend don't come in and say, well, I'm just brand new to this. Tell me everything I need to know.
Right.
You will sometimes be met with like, I don't have time to do that. I'm not really taking on mentees right now. But have some questions that you can kind of throw to other people who have been doing this for a while, and get a variety of opinions from different people too, because there's not always one way to do things. I think diversity in opinion is also very important. So I would say learn as much as possible, connect with other people in the space, take advantage of any learning opportunities that you can. It's only going to serve to enhance you and your business over time, and be open to learning, I think is important.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I love that. That was an awesome little summary.
That was off the cuff too. I was clearly I was not prepared for that, but like I said, I could talk about this stuff all day. I just think it's important, and give yourself space and grace too as you're having this journey. Right, you're not going to do everything perfect right out of the gate. It may take a few kind of ceremonies to kind of hit a groove a little bit, and be patient with yourself. Yeah. Is important too.
No, that's so good. And especially, just starting out, it's really even years in. I'd be on Facebook groups and I see veteran officiants been in here 10, 15, 20 years, and they're experiencing stuff for the first time. And they're like,
Yes.
what the heck? And in all my years of doing this, I've never experienced. How would you handle this? So understand that it happens to them too. We're all just people, building
Absolutely.
a business, serving other people. And that's the coolness of it. And so, yes, I agree. Find that community where you can, ask these questions and be able to learn from other people in other markets, right? Like everybody does not have to do the same thing, but then sometimes just seeing other people just gives you permission to go and be yourself. You know what I mean? And I love that.
Absolutely. But even if you have been around for a while too, you can still learn from other people as well. Yes. There's a lot of my cat again. Say hi. My Salem black cat, right? There's a lot of, be open to learning yourself. Some of these newer, officiants and stuff are coming in with fresh eyes and fresh perspective too. And sometimes a certain level of creativity. I think it's very easy to get stuck in a rut. I think it's very easy to say, well, I just always did it this way. Like open yourself up to learning from other people as well, even if you feel like you're an expert at this point. Yeah. I think we can all learn from each other. Absolutely. And that rising tide raises all ships. Absolutely. It's like, as much as when one of us is doing well or improving, I feel like it's actually elevating the profession and it's elevating the rest of us. Absolutely. I think that's important. Always be open to learning and changing things up.
I love that.
For sure.
Oh yes, that's so good. Well, Tiara, I thank you so much for not only sharing your time, but your wisdom, your energy, your intellect, and really just giving us permission, everyone who is listening, to really just dive in. And like you said, be true to authenticity, be true to customer service, and be true to the professionalism, because that's what you are at the end of the day, a wedding professional.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity. This has been so much fun.
Yes, I love that. So if you have any type of officiant coaching, education, digital products, mentorship, please
No.
share? If not, well, where can we find you on socials?
So you can find me on the socials at Witchy Woman Weddings, on Facebook and on Instagram. My Facebook is pretty active. I feel like more people are using Instagram versus Facebook too these days, but I'm Witchy Woman Weddings, all one word, on both platforms. And my website, witchywomanweddings.com, is me. So,
Awesome. Okay.
yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you guys for listening to another episode, and we will see you next time. Bye.